Welcome to the Check Point Jumpstart training. How to deploy a CloudGuard Network Security and Threat Prevention Product Lab. Exercise 4, Part 1. How to deploy a web server. In the previous exercise, we deployed a CloudGuard gateway and we attached it in between the front-end subnet and the back-end subnet. In this fourth exercise, we're going to deploy a third subnet and install and deploy a web server on this subnet. Then we will configure a firewall policy and NAT rule base to be able to communicate to this web server from the internet. Also, we're going to need to configure routes on the virtual network, routes that will forward all traffic to and from the web server to pass through and be inspected by the CloudGuard gateway. Let me show you how to do this. Let's get started. Let's first create the third subnet. Go to the launch menu and then scroll down to the virtual network. Let's click on that. I only have one virtual network in my deployment. My VNet virtual network that we created in exercise 1. Let's open that. Then go to the Subnet subtab. Here we see two subnets that we created before. We have the front-end subnet and the back-end subnet. Remember, the management station is attached to the front-end subnet, and the firewall is attached to both the front-end and the back-end subnet. I want to create an additional subnet, so let's click on Add a Subnet. Now we need to add details about this subnet. The name, let's call it the web-net. The address range, notice that automatically it added the next available address range in the /24 subnet. We'll keep this suggestion of 10.0.2.0/24. Let's select OK. The deployment is now in progress. The deployment is completed. That was fast. Let's hit the refresh button. There we go. The web-net is created. Next, I want to create a routing table and then add routes to it. First, let's create the routing table. Go to your home menu and select Create a Resource, which takes us to the marketplace. Let's search for route. We want the route table. Okay, let's select Create Route Table. Let's add the details. The subscription is the same. Resource group, I will pick the first one. Region, we will keep the same US East region. But in your case, you might need to change it to your region. Okay, name. What do I want to call the route table? Let's call it my VNet routes. Select Next. We get the tabs menu. Not going to tag anything now, but you could if you like. Let's hit Review and Create. Validation is complete. Let's select Create. This will go fast. Deployment is in progress. Deployment has completed. Let's go to Resource. We have the route table, but notice that there is no routes. All we did was create a route table. Now let's add some routes. Let's go to the Route submenu, hit Enter, select Add to add routes. We need to give our first route a name. Intra_VNet. This route is for all the machines that are part of my VNet virtual network. We need to add the route prefix 10.0.0.0/16. So all routes that are going to my VNet. Where do I want to send them to? Next hop type. We need to select the virtual appliance. The virtual appliance is our CloudGuard gateway. Let's add the CloudGuard gateway IP address 10.0.1.4. Remember, this is the IP that the gateway received from the backend subnet. So this route says that anything that is going to a destination network that falls within the 10.0.0.0/16 range, send the packet to the virtual appliance with IP of 10.0.1.4. Let's accept that and select OK. I want to add two other routes. Select Add one more time. For a second route, again, I need to give it a name. Let's call it the default GW. This will be the route for the default path of last resort. Address prefix will be 0.0.0.0/0 if you go to any IP period. Where do we send it to? Again, we need to select the virtual appliance. This is our CloudGuard gateway with the IP address of 10.0.1.4. This route basically says send all traffic to the gateway, unless you have a specific route, which are what the other routes are for. Again, select OK to continue. The route is being added in the background. The route is complete. Now we have two routes in this routing table. We will add a third route. Again, select Add. This route is for micro segmentation for the web network. So let's call it that. Micro segmentation -subnet -10.0.2.0. The address prefix is 10.0.2.0/24. The next hop is the gateway once again, which is what Azure calls the virtual appliance. And the next hop address, and I think you get the hang of this, is 10.0.1.4. So this route says there might be multiple hosts in the same subnet, the web net subnet. These hosts do not talk directly to each other. All traffic must first go to the CloudGuard gateway for access, permission, and inspection. If it is accepted, then the traffic is routed to its destination, even though the destination might be on the same network. It still needs to go to the CloudGuard gateway. Micro-segmentation is a very powerful security weapon. By taking advantage of some very creative routing cloud capabilities. Select OK to continue. Deploying. Route successfully added. Okay, so now I have added 3 routes to my VNet routing table. But this routing table is not attached to any subnets, and so it's not being enforced by any network. So that is what we're going to do next. Select subnets. Notice that this route table is not associated to any subnets. It is blank. So let's select Associate. What subnet should we associate to this routing table? Remember, the micro-segmentation route is for the network of 10.0.2.0. So let's select the My VNet virtual network. And now let's select the web-net subnet. It's saving a route. Route is saved. So now this route table is associated to the web-net subnet. Let's now go to the Overview tab. Notice that we have 3 routes and 1 subnet. Before exiting, let's recap once again. We created the third subnet called WebNet with a range of 10.0.2.0/24, which falls within my VNet VPC range. We created a routing table called my route table. We added 3 routes to this route table, which all point to the CloudGuard gateway, the virtual appliance. Default of 0.0.0.0/0 with the next hop of 10.0.1.4. Enter VNet of 10.0.0.0/16 via next hop of 10.0.1.4. Micro segmentation route 10.0.2.0/24 via next hop of 10.0.1.4. We then associated this route table to the VNet subnet. This completes the end of exercise 4, part 1. In part 2 of exercise 4, we're going to create a web virtual machine and then add it to the WebNet subnet. I will see you there.